Here we go, Rings of Power fans. The Dark Lord will return. Season 3 of the Rings of Power begins November 11th, 2026. That means we officially have a release date for the show. And so before we get into talking about what to be expected into Season 3, we're just going to kind of talk about Season 2, what happened there, and what we could be expecting in Season 3. So as we look at Season 2, we had the sacking of Eregion. It was a fairly dark story arc that the show gave out, and it was something that I honestly really enjoyed, with the death of Celebrimbor and the forging of the 9 Rings of Power. And so at the end of the show, or at the end of the season, we had it where the heroes had retreated to what I can only imagine is the Valley of Imladris. Wow. Or what will be soon to know as Rivendell. But that means here we're going to be picking up shortly after that. I believe they said that there's going to be a bit of a time skip. So we'll be looking for that, not expecting everything to be kind of like right after the other, as we saw with season 1 and 2, where they transitioned with literally the beginning of season 2, picking up exactly where season 1 left off. But now instead we're seeing season 3 pick up here, where we get this really cool picture of Sauron, and I'm excited to see kind of what the creators of the show are going to be doing with this episode and how they are going to be bringing everything together. One of the things that I'm really excited for is, as we get into season 3, we're going to be neck deep into the war between the elves and Sauron. That is something that the showrunners have already explained to us, and we're probably going to start getting set up for things like the sinking of Numenor, the establishment of the kingdoms of Arnor and the kingdom of Gondor in the south, and that is going to then set up for the climactic War of the Last Alliance. Exactly how this is going to be coming about, I don't know, because there's going to be a lot of areas that are going to be filled in. I'm imagining that with season 3, as we transition into season 3, that the focus is going to be on Sauron getting captured by the Númenóreans and going into Numenor, and we're going to be spending a good majority of the season watching Sauron corrupt Pharazôn, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw in season 3 Sauron deceiving Pharazôn to move into the attacking of Valinor and the military move that happens within the books. That's the only thing that would make sense for me. And then maybe with season 4 we might see the kind of a transition period from the sinking of Numenor going into the establishment of Arnor and Gondor, which then moves into season 5, where we will then have the War of the Last Alliance and Isildur claiming the ring, and then what then transitions into the regular story of the Lord of the Rings. But I'm excited to see kind of where the show is going to be going. Now, this is going to be a huge area of things being different, since every other season of Rings of Power, we have been seeing it come in from a 2-year release point. We had a 2-year gap between seasons 1 and 2, and so now we're only seeing a 1-year gap between seasons 2 and 3, which I am honestly really excited about that. I've always felt like shows need to be coming out faster, because it allows them to be able to stay relevant. It allows the hype to be able to be maintained. Some people might disagree with me, but it's just, it's my own opinion. I think that they want to continue to work on them as much as possible, so that way the hype doesn't die out. As a Sherlock fan, I'm sure a lot of people who watched Sherlock about 10 years ago will remember the brutal 2-year wait between seasons 2 and 3, but I'm not going to get into that, because I'll be going on my own soapbox there. But either way, I'm very excited to see. We've got this picture of Sauron, and I think it is the coolest that Sauron has looked. I know, obviously, we don't have, like, a ton of information as to what this is looking like, but as you can see, Sauron is now wearing the crown of Morgoth that was used quite a bit at the end of Season 2, with it stabbing Galadriel, and seeing how Adar used it to kill Sauron's previous physical form, and then now seeing Sauron having it being worn atop of his head. And so I am just very excited to kind of see where the showrunners are going to be bringing the show, and how they're going to use Sauron, because at this point Sauron has now been revealed. They know who he is. They don't have the guise of Anatar that we're going to be worrying about when it comes to the deception, and we don't have the overall mystery that came with season 1 of Halbrand, but instead we have Sauron revealed. We have him in his full form, is now ready to fight against the elves. There's a lot of plot points that I'm honestly really interested in seeing. I'm very excited to see how not only things with Numenor are going to unfold, but we have a lot of questions going on with the plot line in Khazad-dûm, where Durin is mourning the loss of his father to the Balrog, Durin's Bane, that is now awoken in the depths of Khazad-dûm, and we're going to have to continue on with that plot line to kind of see how the fall of Khazad-dûm will go. But we also do know that there are dwarves that partake in the last battle with Sauron and the Last Alliance, so it'll be really cool to kind of see how Durin will play into bringing those alliances together, especially the friendship between Durin and Elrond that has been such a huge plot point throughout the entire show. Will be really cool to see that come to a dramatic conclusion as we get into season 5. And then we also have the plot line with the Dark Wizard, which has been confirmed to be one of the blue wizards. Exactly what part he is going to be playing, we don't know, and where that possession and evilness kind of comes in is still very unknown. Personally, I'm kind of like iffy on that whole plot line. I've always talked about being the most critical of the Harfoot plotline, and so I personally am kind of just not looking forward to that particular story, but are rather more excited to kind of see like where the show is going to unfold around the other areas. I personally think that bringing Gandalf into the plotline of the Rings of Power, and even unfortunately bringing Tom Bombadil, as much as I thought he was an incredible addition to the show, bringing him into the show actually kind of distracted from a lot of the overarching plot lines. And since Gandalf and the Harfoots have had nothing to do with the overarching plotline of Sauron and everything there, then it really just becomes such a distraction, and it brings out a lot of unnecessary plot points. Now, a lot of people will defend the Harfoot plotline and talking about how they bring a little bit of light, they bring that joy into Middle-earth. That is a reoccurring picture, but I don't think the Second Age is about that. The Second Age is where we get, especially with the War of the Last Alliance, we get the fall of the mightiest kingdoms of men. We get the beginning of the end for the time of the elves. It's not meant to be a happy time of Middle-earth, and I think that trying to bring happier times into Middle-earth is only something that actually detracts from how dark and dreary Middle-earth had been at its point in time. There were multiple moments throughout the stories where Middle-earth is a barren wasteland. It is something that has been destroyed through war, through degradation and wrath and ruin because of the workings of the Dark Lords. And I really want to see the showrunners really focus in on that plot line. Whether or not they're going to listen to me, obviously, I don't think is going to be the case, because they have been very committal to that Gandalf storyline in Rune, and with the Dark Wizard now being one of the Blue Wizards. It'll be interesting to kind of see like what will happen with them, but I think if we were able to make our own story about that taking place like within the early Third Age, where Gandalf does come in, and the Tolkien Legendarium story of the 5 wizards coming into Middle-earth, I think that would be a lot more of an interesting plotline than what we have seen so far with Gandalf and the rest of the Harfoots. But I digress. I'm not going to go too much into that plot story. We don't really have too much more to talk about in terms of what to be expected with Rings of Power. We should be getting a trailer here. Honestly, it could happen. I would assume we'll get our first trailers sometime during the summer, and I will be posting a reaction as well as just talking about my own thoughts about the trailer and what we can be expecting from there, trying to keep you guys updated as much as possible. I will also be trying to keep updated with like my thoughts on each and every single episode as they come out. We'll see how well that goes, because it will be around the holiday season, and that's usually a pretty busy time for me, but I'm going to do my absolute best to try and keep up with that as much as possible. But that'll do it for this video, guys. As always, I do want to give a huge support to all of my Ko-Fi supporters. There will be a link to support on Ko-Fi down in the description below. And as always, thank you to everybody for watching. You are loved, you are valued, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we will see you right back here in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.